Kgosientsho Ramokgopa is warning Eskom might lose the gains it's made in addressing the country's power crisis if it becomes complacent. With his maintenance program, he's been giving an update on the state of the grid. The power utility has implemented stage 3 load shedding until Monday to replenish its reserves. Now, joining me for conversation around this is Mthunzi Luthuli, an energy expert. Mthunzi, thanks so much for coming onto the show.
Thank you, Hugo.
So the one thing that's clear is that all of Eskom leadership, including the electricity minister, regret what's happened. They've called it unacceptable. What else did you pick up from this conversation or that address that seems to shed light on what's happening, and hopefully that it's not just about Monday where load shedding will end, but for the foreseeable future?
Yeah, okay. But the one big thing that I pick up is that Eskom is complacent. You know, I don't think there's a sense of agency and a realization of the impact that load shedding has on the development of a country. You see, when you have load shedding, you are not going to get economic growth, for instance, okay? And no investor goes and invests in a country that has no electricity, okay? So when the president talks about, you know, we're going to attract investors, and he stands up in the State of the Nation address and he says, we'll grow the economy by 3%, etc. It's not going to happen.
But Mthunzi,
if you don't have load shedding.
Let's speak about it in context, right? Yeah. Up until 3 weeks ago, right, there had been no load shedding for 10 months. For 10 months, right? So it's not entirely fair to say that Eskom are complacent, because for the last 10 months they've either been doing it by hook or by crook, or they've been doing something right. Since the new CEO took over, I think there's been a fair amount of stability, and I think it's fair to say that. The issue, obviously, is beyond this, or what's happened in the last 3 weeks. Do they have a plan? Do they know what it is that they should be doing to address this issue?
Okay. Before the 10 months, we had, I don't know how many years, 12, 15 years of load shedding. Load shedding in South Africa started in 2007.
Yes.
We are now in 2025. That's 23 years of load shedding. 10 months in 23 years is nothing. Okay, so I just want to put it in perspective. Okay, I'm not sure. Look, as far as we are concerned, when we look at the problem as engineers, the problem is not difficult to solve. The real problem really is the UCLF, the unplanned capacity loss factor of this week. At some point it was sitting at 17,000 megawatts. That is what needs to be really dealt with. If you can reduce that UCLF,
what needs to be done to reduce it?
They need to embark on a major, and I say major, refurbishment and upgrade program of those units that constitute this UCLF. This UCLF has been hovering around 15,000 on average for the last 3, 4, or 5 years. Okay, and if you look at how Eskom was able to abate load shedding in the last 10 months, and you look at where the UCLF was, it had dropped to around about 11,000 megawatts. And so that just goes on to show you that if you can focus on reducing the UCLF, the country will be okay.
So you don't think they're doing that?
I don't think they've had a focused program on it, because if they had, we wouldn't have such a high UCLF. You see, internationally, if you look at international standards, out of your total generation capacity, 10% you reserve for a normal maintenance, routine maintenance, okay? And then 10% you can allocate to UCLF, okay? Given Eskom's total generation capacity, we should be looking at around a UCLF of 5,000 megawatts. It's sitting at 3 times that. 15,000. You know, it's ridiculously high. And it's not acceptable. So had they had a proper plan to deal with UCLF, with this UCLF, put the right people in charge of the refurbishment and upgrade program, allocate sufficient funds, have a proper plan and execute it properly, we wouldn't be sitting where we are sitting.
So you've mentioned that load shedding started in 2007.
Yeah.
Right. So you're going back, what, several years ago, right, that it started. Now, a little over a year ago, right, we have a new electricity minister because President Cyril Ramokgopa believes that there is need to focus. Dan Morgane is appointed in March of last year, if I recall, a new Eskom board. So taking into account, right, that there's been this absolute disaster since 2007, are you not convinced that since the appointment of these three teams, if you will, that there's been sufficient progress that seems to point us in the right direction?
Okay, 2007 up to now, that's about what? 18 years.
18 years.
Okay, that's a long time. In the time period, we've had lots of appointments. You know, new board members and new management coming in, under the radar. It's, you know.
But the first time we've had an electricity minister.
But the first time that we've had an electricity minister, yes. But, you know, Hugo, ultimately, what matters is not, you know, who gets appointed or how many people have been appointed. What matters is whether the work gets done on the ground, okay? Do the units get fixed? Are the maintenance programs adhered to? Those kinds of things. That's really what matters at the end of the day. If the people that get appointed at a senior management level or at board level don't ensure that the work is done on the ground at the power stations, nothing will improve.
Well, for intents and purposes, it would seem that this is the most intense maintenance program that's occurred in the most recent times, from what I understand. But I'd like to believe that the one thing as we wrap up has been the issue of focused maintenance around this rainy season, if you will. And there has been talk that it needs to be spread out over time because the amount of rain that has occurred in the last few weeks has been a deterrent.
You know, blaming the weather doesn't cut it, okay? When Eskom was the best performing utility in the world, we still had rain, okay? We still had hot summers, we had cold winters. So blaming the weather doesn't cut it at all, okay? I think the routine maintenance that they have now, I think they've got something like 7,000 megawatts that is on routine maintenance. That's not that intense. Like I said earlier, if you look at Eskom's total generation capacity, it should be around 5,000. So they're about 2,000 megawatts more than the normal. Okay, so it's not exceedingly intense, but it's good. It should happen, and given perhaps the backlog that they've had on maintenance, maybe they should be slightly above what is regarded as normal. But this, we must stress, this maintenance program started not with this team and with the appointment of Minister Ramokgopa. If you remember when Andre Director came in, together with Jan Obelhoza, they used to talk about a maintenance philosophy and focusing on maintenance. So it started a long time ago. It hasn't, we haven't seen the fruits of that yet, which says that there's something which they're not doing right. They've got perhaps the right idea, maybe they've got the wrong people or the wrong program or whatever it is, but it's not working.
Well, some schools of thought have argued that because we've had 10 months without load shedding, that there are things that they've been doing right. Mthunzi Luthuli, energy expert, thanks so much for coming onto the show and appreciate you speaking to us.
Thank you. Thank you.
All right, that conversation around where Eskom is in particular reference to load shedding, from what we understand and the assurance given by the electricity minister is that come Monday, load shedding should be behind us, at least for the time being.